Size and energy, the hidden geometry of light, augmented Newtonian dynamics. Measurement has always stood at the heart of physics, the bridge between concept and reality. As a natural corollary, size and energy become central to the act of measurement itself. Yet when we turn to light, the very tool by which we see and measure, a strange paradox emerges. For in its interaction with matter, light defies the boundaries of scale, revealing a geometry that challenges all we think we know. A Faraday cage can be built of broad iron rods and low-frequency electromagnetic waves, the kind produced by electric currents, still cannot pass through, as Nikola Tesla demonstrated so dramatically more than a century ago. A microwave oven needs a much finer mesh, because its waves are shorter and more energetic. But to see beyond the smallest cell, into the realm of atoms, even light fails. Only X-rays or electrons will do. Each step demands greater energy and reveals a smaller world. Size and energy rise together, like two sides of the same scale. Looked at in a practical manner, it is easy to see the tremendous conceptual task that quantum mechanics and the Standard Model face when describing the emission and absorption of photons. When the actual numbers are examined, it becomes difficult to comprehend how, in a multi-electron atom, a single electron can absorb a specific wavelength of light without disturbing the others. Take a typical wavelength of 500 nanometers. The classical diameter of the electron is about 2.8 times 10 to the power of minus 15 meters, so the incoming wave is roughly 180 million times larger than the electron itself. Even if we take the classical diameter of an atom to be around 10 to the power of minus 10 meters, the wavelength is still about 5,000 times larger than the atom. Here lies a genuine puzzle. How can an electron absorb a wave that is 180 million times larger than itself? Against such enormous differences in scale, the abstract notion of a wave function overlap seems wholly inadequate. The disparity becomes even more striking when we compare areas. The atomic cross-section, approximately 7.5 times 10 to the power of minus 19 square meters, shows that nearly 25 million atomic cross-sections could fit within the circular area of a 500 nanometer wavefront. On the one hand, size clearly matters. We see this from the different mesh sizes required to block different forms of electromagnetic radiation, from the coarse bars of a Faraday cage to the fine grid on a microwave door, and finally to the atomic scale probes of an electron microscope. On the other hand, when these dimensional relationships are applied to photon-electron interaction, the situation becomes paradoxical. It is clear that neither Schrödinger's wave equation nor Max Born's wave function offers a truly plausible solution to this problem. However, augmented Newtonian dynamics offers a perfect solution that sweeps aside all these inconsistencies. The quantum enigma of photon creation. In quantum mechanics and the Standard Model, the photon is not regarded as a concrete particle but as an excitation of the electromagnetic field. It is said to arise not directly from the electron, but from the field that fills all of space. When an electron changes energy levels, the field becomes excited, and this disturbance is what gives birth to a photon. The paradox is immediate. The photon is supposedly emitted by the electron, yet its origin lies in a limitless field that exists everywhere. This is further complicated in atoms with multiple electrons, where several orbitals can be occupied simultaneously. In such systems, the field excitation model becomes nearly incoherent. If photons are field ripples created by electron transitions, which electron's local disturbance triggers the excitation, and how does that single ripple avoid disturbing all the others? The Standard Model has no clear answer. Instead, it falls back on statistics, using probability amplitudes to describe what is, in reality, a deterministic and localized process. The notion of spontaneous emission adds yet another layer of discomfort. It claims that an excited electron can, without any physical cause, emit a photon because of random vacuum fluctuations. In other words, the electron radiates not because something happens to it, but because nothing happens at all. Such reasoning might have been tolerated in an era when atomic transitions were unobservable, but in the world of femtosecond lasers, quantum photonics, and nanosecond switching, it borders on the absurd. Modern technology operates at scales where timing and causation are exact. Every pulse of light, every photodiode response, every atomic clock transition is measured to trillionths of a second, Yet, according to quantum orthodoxy, these events are still governed by random field excitations and spontaneous decays. The AND interpretation of photon emission. Augmented Newtonian dynamics and theory restores order to this chaos. In and photons are not field excitations but real, physical emissions produced within the electron itself. According to and theory, every electron strives to maintain its base energy intact. When it acquires excess energy, through excitation, collision, or absorption, it restores equilibrium by releasing a rapid succession of electric pulses, each carrying a portion of that surplus energy. These pulses are emitted in intervals of about 10 to the power of -16 seconds, so close together that there is no time for them to disperse. The earliest pulses are the strongest, while those that follow gradually weaken as the electron approaches equilibrium. This asymmetry in strength naturally gives rise to polarization, the formation of a distinct positive and negative end within the sequence. As a result, the emitted train of pulses coalesces into a stable dipole formation that can preserve its energy intact for indefinite periods. This stable configuration is the photon, not a fleeting ripple of a field, but a compact, self-sustaining dipole of electrical energy. Each photon then travels along a line of aligned virtual photons within the dark matter ether, the universal medium that transmits both light and gravitation. In this framework, the frequency of light is not an abstract oscillation but a physical rhythm, the number of photons emitted per second. Periodicity thus becomes mechanical and measurable, restoring causality and physical coherence to the phenomenon of light. The rebuttal of wave-particle duality. Few concepts have done more harm to physical understanding than the doctrine of wave-particle duality. Conceived as a desperate compromise to explain phenomena that classical physics could not at the time explain, it has endured for over a century, not because it makes sense, but because modern physics has built itself upon its paradoxes. In quantum mechanics, light is said to behave sometimes as a wave and sometimes as a particle. When interference or diffraction is observed, it is called a wave. When it strikes a detector, it becomes a particle. The two descriptions contradict one another, yet both are declared simultaneously true. To maintain this illusion, physicists abandoned the idea of a physical medium and placed all structure into abstract fields and probability functions, mathematical conveniences that could explain outcomes but never the process itself. The problem deepens when one considers multi-electron atoms. Here, waves are imagined to overlap and interfere inside a confined region so small that any real oscillation would destroy the atom in an instant. The wave function, then, is not a wave in any physical sense, but a symbol, a code for probability. In other words, the atom is not waving at all. Augmented Newtonian dynamics and theory rejects this contradiction outright. It restores to physics what quantum mechanics surrendered: causality, structure, and continuity. In and theory, the photon is a real particle formed from the ordered emission of electric pulses within the electron. Each photon is a stable dipole, maintained by the near-instantaneous succession of pulses emitted at intervals of 10 to the power of -14 seconds. The apparent wave of light arises not from the dual nature of the photon, but from the alignment of successive photons along lines of virtual photons in the dark matter ether. The wave is not an independent entity, it is the pattern of ordered motion created by countless discrete photons following the same path through the medium. Where quantum mechanics invokes paradox, AND theory provides mechanism. Where quantum theory speaks of probability, AND speaks of process. Light is therefore neither wave nor particle, it is a stream of organized electrical photon dipoles propagating through a structured medium. The illusion of duality dissolves, and the photon once again becomes what it always was, a real, causal agent of energy transfer in a physically connected universe. Why wave-particle duality was adopted, and why it fails. The concept of wave-particle duality was born not from triumph but from desperation. At the dawn of the 20th century, physicists faced a contradiction. Light behaved as a wave in experiments like Young's double slit, yet it also behaved as discrete packets of energy in the photoelectric effect. The idea that light could be both a wave and a particle emerged as a compromise, a way to preserve the mathematics of Maxwell's waves and the energy quantization of Planck and Einstein, without explaining the underlying mechanism. When the same problem appeared for the electron, the confusion deepened. According to classical physics, an electron orbiting a nucleus should radiate energy continuously and spiral inward, the Larmor problem. To save the atom from collapsing, Niels Bohr proposed fixed energy levels where electrons somehow stopped radiating. But this created a new paradox. Why would a charged particle radiate when moving between levels but not while orbiting within one? The only way to sustain this fiction was to imagine the electron as both wave and particle, a standing wave in the atom that did not radiate unless disturbed. Thus was born the wave-particle duality of matter and radiation, a mathematical patch to conceal a physical gap. Yet this solution has never truly explained how an electron maintains its stability. Quantum mechanics describes probabilities, not processes. The Standard Model compounds the problem by claiming that forces are mediated by virtual particles, gluons for the strong force, photons for electromagnetism, without specifying how these virtual exchanges actually occur or how stability is achieved in multi-electron atoms. Augmented Newtonian Dynamics, and theory, resolves these contradictions by restoring physical causality. In and theory, the electron is not a probabilistic cloud but a solid, self-regulating particle that continuously emits and reabsorbs virtual photons to maintain its base energy. This process of self-interaction stabilizes the electron just as gluon exchange stabilizes the nucleus. No wave-particle duality is required. Radiation and stability arise from the same physical mechanism, the constant emission and absorption of energy quanta within a real medium. The medium itself is the dark matter ether, a vast ocean of virtual photons that fills all of space. Observations by Vera Rubin and later cosmological studies show that dark matter constitutes between 85 and 95% of the universe's mass. And theory identifies this dark matter with the virtual photon field, the hidden structure that both carries radiation and anchors gravitation. AND theory offers a clear rebuttal of dark energy and cosmic expansion. In this picture, light is not a wave in empty space, nor a dualistic mystery. It is a real particle process occurring within a real medium. The electron's self-stabilization explains atomic persistence, the alignment of virtual photons explains propagation, and the vast presence of dark matter explains the connectivity of the universe itself. Where quantum mechanics substitutes paradox for mechanism, and theory restores continuity, cause, and common sense. The duality dissolves, and the photon, once again, becomes what it was always meant to be, a bridge between matter and the living fabric of space. The photon and the limits of sight. Yet this understanding also reveals a deeper mystery. Why is it impossible to see atoms with optical microscopes? Although all photons share the same intrinsic diameter of 10 to the power of -16 meters, their wavelength is determined by periodicity, the number of emission events per second. Thus, the apparent size of light depends not on the photon's physical dimensions but on the rate at which energy pulses are emitted. In this sense, wavelength is not an extension of space but an expression of energy. The shorter the wavelength, the greater the energy, and the finer the detail that can be resolved. Optical frequencies simply lack the energy needed to delineate atoms. This principle finds empirical support in the attosecond laser experiments that now allow scientists to trace the motion of individual electrons. These experiments confirm that light and matter interactions occur in sharply defined bursts, real, timed events, not probabilistic oscillations. Further, if one examines the frequency of the light used in these lasers, their wavelengths all remain above 200 nanometers. It is their periodicity that makes it possible for the lasers to interact with electrons. As the 2025 Nobel Prize in Physics recognized in the work of John Clark, Michel H. Deverett, and John M. Martinez, periodicity and energy are one and the same. Their demonstration of quantized energy exchange in superconducting circuits echoes exactly what augmented Newtonian dynamics has maintained from the beginning. Energy is not abstract. It is real, measurable, and physically connected to periodicity by the simple and eternal relation energy equals Planck's constant times frequency. Conclusion: a universe of causality restored. The history of physics is a story of extraordinary progress shadowed by deep confusion. We learned to measure, to calculate, and to predict with astonishing precision, yet we lost touch with what the world is actually made of. Quantum mechanics and the Standard Model gave us tools of power, but not of understanding. They describe probabilities, not processes, symbols, not structure, paradoxes, not causality. Augmented Newtonian dynamics, and theory, restores what was lost. It replaces abstraction with mechanism, a universe built not from invisible fields and random collapses, but from the ordered exchange of energy between real particles. The electron, through its constant emission and absorption of virtual photons, maintains its own equilibrium. The photon, born as a sequence of electric pulses, carries energy along lines of aligned virtual photons, the very fabric of the dark matter ether that fills the cosmos. In this view, light does not move through emptiness but through a living continuum, a structured sea of virtual photons that links every particle to every other. Gravity itself becomes a brief alignment of this medium, an emergent effect of the same fundamental process that governs light. Experimental proof has mounted. Attosecond laser technology now resolves the motion of individual electrons in real time, confirming that interactions are far faster and more structured than the vague field oscillations of textbook quantum theory suggest. Meanwhile, the 2025 Nobel Prize in Physics awarded to John Clark, Michel H. Deverett and John M. Martinis for demonstrating energy quantization in macroscopic circuits reminds us that periodicity is energy, a truth and theory places at the heart of the universe. The old paradoxes dissolve. There is no wave-particle duality, no spontaneous emission from nothing, no mysterious field excitation spread across space. There is only energy in motion, continuous, causal, real. Vera Rubin's observations and later cosmological studies reveal that dark matter comprises 85 to 95% of the universe's mass, a structure and theory identifies as the universal virtual photon C, the hidden geometry of light itself. Augmented Newtonian dynamics does not reject quantum theory, it completes it. It returns physics to its rightful foundation, a universe where cause precedes effect, where light travels through something real, and where energy forever seeks to preserve itself.